Okay, we have a few people left. Well done. Good for those who are staying here. The high quality people have stayed. You can come closer, closer to the stage. We don't see that much due to the lights that are in our eyes anyhow. The last session that we are going to hold here is the segment where we're going to, and we have talked quite a lot about the strategic aspects of issues, and we didn't deal with the military issues themselves. We have come into a situation where this conference and the entire is now being held throughout the exchange of office in the army for the chief of staff, so we could not have brought in the high commanders. It's okay, and so we decided that we're going to end this conference. And you know that in the IDF, it doesn't matter if Gadi, the chief of staff, has been in office for 24 hours. Everybody already knows exactly what they need to do, how to do it, and when. And so the summation session is going to be one that deals more on the level of the army and the view of commanders of divisions, the leading divisions in the IDF. I'm going to present them later on. They have come from protective edge operation, and how do they prepare themselves for the next operation. And I think that we have heard it throughout the session, throughout the conference, including the Minister of Foreign Affairs, that we're going to see the fourth round. But if we do things right in the fourth round, we're not going to have the fifth round. And we're so much into this concept of rounds, I guess we're going to see the fifth as well. We would like to open the last session. Generals, okay, here I'm confusing here English and Hebrew, mixing the two. But since Lieutenant General Benny Gantz, the Chief of Staff, ended his role as Chief of Staff yesterday, and he sent to all IDF units a video clip, one who served for so many years in the IDF and went through the entire echelon of positions, we decided to start with the video clip where he says goodbye. Benny says goodbye to his soldiers in the IDF. Some are seated here because we, the people who serve in reserves, are also his soldiers. In the last 4 years, I had the honors of being the Chief of Staff. I started my service in the paratroopers. Along the way, I served under commanders who left their impression on the IDF, studied from them what does it mean to adhere to the mission. I had the privilege of serving next to soldiers who taught me what is brotherhood. I commanded many soldiers, the best of our sons and daughters. I marched soldier to soldier with devoted fighters who are no longer here with us, close friends, commanders and soldiers who fought with courage and died while defending our country. And I bear their memory with me until today. It's going to be with me throughout the way. For 4 decades, I saw how the IDF made great improvements and leaps forward in every realm, whether it is life-saving, innovative technologies, up to various weapons, while maintaining our moral scope. Because we are the army of the people, and it is our commitment to maintain an environment of service that is respectful, that is equal. We are the spirit of the entire society, and people from the entire echelons of society serve in the army. They are called to duty, and they do what they have to do. It is a duty, but also a privilege, and we know that each and every one of us are fulfilling the mission of our generation. I'm certain that we could continue counting on our reserves forces who will come to mission whenever necessary. Their devotion shows again and again that they're always a very important power of the IDF. I'm now giving the baton to Gadi, my friend and colleague. under his service, we're going to continue serving in the IDF. I know that under Gadi's command, the IDF will continue to stand strong, facing the various threats. Commanders of the IDF and soldiers, due to you, the State of Israel will continue thriving and existing for eternity. I count on you. I'm certain of your capabilities, and I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to call Colonel Tomer Yifrach. Please join me here. He is the commander of 188 Division. He comes from the Shirion, from the Armor Division. The second division commander is Gordin. He's going to show up a bit later. You know that in the army you're never late, you're only detained a little bit. So he is going to join us later, Ori, and here he is. Okay, this was a good example. Ori grew up in the special units, the special combat units, and in recent years he has been in commanding positions. The last one was the division commander of Nachal. Tomer and Ori both have experience of recent fighting in protective edge operation, and alongside that experience they are working in order to prepare and train the forces for the next rounds. I would like to say just a word about the conference, because you're coming at the end of the conference and we have a few people left, but all in all we had a very interesting conference as far as participation is concerned. When we dealt with strategic issues, the main message, which is obvious nowadays, is that the world keeps changing in front of us. The environment keeps on changing, and we don't even have a minute there to understand what we have to do, and we come across a new phenomenon and another challenge. In what we have learned in the past, the way that we had a regulated system of states and armies, this is no longer relevant. We have a collection of players. We don't know what their logic is. It can be alternated by week. Some have armies, others have different means. Some are trying to be more advanced in capabilities. Others utilize the more primitive capabilities. The picture is so varied and is ever changing. So in an orderly state, with an orderly army, it is very difficult to handle these challenges, and this is more so if we're using terms from the past, that of decision or decisive outcome. When we see it out in the field, then we can come along with our state targets, with our political targets. I'm not asking you questions in this regard because it is beyond your scope of responsibility, but at times happens that we are running wars where the political arena does not want to state any particular goal for which we're fighting. For example, the last event where we commentators, not the ones involved from within, we the commentators are describing it as preserving the status quo, quiet for quiet. And usually in the past, when we went for war, we had strategic purpose, when we're trying to change reality to bring about a different reality or different opportunities that will later on be expressed in the political field. So we have dealt with this entire issue and issues in the past 2 days. I would like to ask you, in respect of your experience, which was particularly expressed in the last collision, but in recent years, all of the asymmetrical collisions, as we refer to them, the various enemies who are exploiting or trying to exploit through this asymmetry, the way by which they can neutralize technology advantage and the quality advantages that we have. to places where we cannot express these advantages. How do you as commanders out there in the field handle these phenomena where you have military orderly capabilities, well structured, well proven with technologies, and now you have to deal and handle an urban environment with an enemy that is ever changing, that is difficult to locate, to know how it's going to operate, and that is making use of all of our disadvantages as an orderly army. Tomer, as the one to report to duty first, you will be the first one to start. I think that just like the issue or the problem is complex, the answer is complex as well. We don't have one dimension through which we deal with this relatively new phenomenon. First of all, I don't know if it is the first leading thing, but we are also constantly developing and advancing, whether it is our weapons or technology. We have made sure that our methodologies of training are following what's happening in the field to try to fit them to what is happening in battle. Training in complex urban areas, this is one thing. I think that the imaging training is one of the most effective solutions for this problem. And we also have a lot of cooperation, whether it is the various divisions of the army. Aerial fighting is much more present than it used to be in the past. Whether it is intelligence that is ongoing, flowing on an ongoing basis, going up to the minutest details. I think that all of this together as a puzzle enable us a good handling of the situation, and it also creates a flexible and open system for change, ongoing change, and I think this was expressed in Protective Edge. Well, Tomer, there are many who say that the current wars, the armed forces does not fit it anymore. It is much more fit for the new special guerrilla units. Is this true? Do you have to change the way that the armed forces are fighting in order to match the... I think that maybe this is not my part. Maybe Ori is going to discuss this, how important it is. I think that it was important. It's going to keep on being important. I think that the one to lead. I think that the armor division is leading the war. It can maneuver into the deep enemy territory for a certain target. You have to point at it, but the moment there is a decision or there is the capability of such a decision, the moment you can do it with your armored, with your tanks that is fast, that can reach deep with... I think that this is a capability that we must maintain. And in more tactic view, asymmetry doesn't only have negative sides to it, it also has its positive sides. When asymmetry brings together a Kalashnikov with a cannon of a tank, there is a positive asymmetry for our troops. When we have an equation of an M16 facing a Kalashnikov, we need someone to break this balance, whether it is missile from the tank. I think that the armored troops are very relevant for this purpose. And we are training in this manner. We're training together with other units. We teach our people, our commanders already from the initial stages of training to fight in these specific areas. Ori, let's talk about asymmetry with you. There is some sort of asymmetry when we relate to the goal that we want to obtain. While we say that the enemy suffices with the strategic tie, not being bit, asymmetry is also expressed not only through the manner of fighting, but also the goals. How does this affect you when you're fighting as commander in the field. And I'd like to update you, we ran a survey regarding the perception of protective edge in public opinion in Israel. We did it throughout the operation, after the operation, and today as well. I can say that most of the public in Israel, or about 50%, say that the operation ended with a strategic tie. What is this strategic tie? And when you are fighters, when you're fighting out there, do you think of this result? I have to say that I'm happy for the last bit of the question relating to the success or lack thereof of the operation. A Six-Day War was perceived as one of the greatest military successes in 6 days, only beating all Arab armies. If I'm right, it was followed by 3 years of attrition. And then the paper said, just like they do today, what is our situation of deterrence, etc. We have these nice memories of the past. We used to have very short wars, and even the strategic war of in the Second World War, I think it took about 5 years to beat Germany. And so let's put these memories in proportion. I think that the issue of asymmetry is definitely one that brings together things from various goals. This is not new to me as well, but maybe the dimensions are different. Sadat, going to the Yom Kippur War, did not want to reconquer Sinai. We look at it nowadays as if he wanted to obtain or to reach some sort of an arrangement to change the situation, and we wanted to put things back as they were. These are two goals of two sides that are not fighting for the same thing. And today we want to have peace and quiet for the people of the South and change the balance so the other side does not attack citizens. Within the entire war, the other side, all that he tried to do is to reach an achievement where in the past dozens of hostages were not a failure. Nowadays, one hostage allows the other side to obtain what they wanted in the most extreme sense of asymmetry. In our goals of the war, we want to launch land attacks, to conquer the land and to purify it from the enemy. And the other side, what it wants is simply to harm us while we're doing our work. Both sides have different views on it. We're not complaining there, but we have the manner by which we operate has to be either more coordinated fashion. The tanks, if in the past we would have planned drills of dozens of tanks that are moving one along the others in the Golan Heights or the Sinai lands, we're now talking about a smaller amount of tanks that are going into the urban areas. You cannot have many tanks going in there, but the cooperation and between our capabilities in those urban areas and the closed areas like Lebanon, for example, allow us to bring about our greatest advantage and to allow for this fighting capability that will lower the capabilities of the enemy to harm us. And to conclude, our manner of operation must always incorporate our view of how do we not let our enemy drag us towards and canceling our advantage or bringing us to a place where within a tunnel, for example, you can express maybe one or two guns. There I cannot express Tomer when he's coming to assist me or other capabilities of engineering, and so I have an interest not going into that tunnel. If I need to, I will use other technical devices that I know. I know how to fight there as well, but there, of course, my advantage is lower. And so I have less of willing to go into tunnels, for example. And more we're developing the capabilities of neutralizing those capabilities that neutralize our advantage, aiming to bring our tactic advantage into the battlefield.
In this type of wars and confrontations that we're fighting now, the abduction of a soldier can be a strategic achievement for the other side. When you run to Bet Hanon, how much do you deal with this, with first preventing the abduction of the soldier, or first achieving the aim that you were sent in to achieve? How much does it restrict your operational freedom of movement when you have this kind of strategic burden of the abduction of a soldier? When I go out on attack on Bet Hanon, I can't work on preventing an abduction of a soldier. Then that I have to work on in the preparation for the mission, and they need to know how to prevent that. When I'm already involved in the attack, when we're talking about a relatively large force, all that I can deal with is the mission and the coordination between the forces, but it does impact the way the commanders think in the field and the soldiers, but it does not restrict us. I don't think that this is something that we think about all the time, but the threat has become much more comprehensive. The arms, the concepts of home front and front have become interchanged, and when you go to sleep at night, you may have a tunnel underneath you. The issue of securing has become much more important. So for the purpose of this discussion, we can say that the way in which the security is expressed is greater, and we have to invest a lot more thought and forces when we're on the move, and especially when we are in a static position. You spoke about the home front and the front. This brings me to a question that I wanted to ask later, but I'll take advantage of what you said. We often encounter, and in the Institute we deal with the study of army and society and the strength and resilience of the home front. And there are those who say, I'm not saying this is the position of the Institute, that in the next war, the home front will be hit very hard, and not like in Operation Protective Edge. Hezbollah has much better missiles and more precise missiles. Will this impact the way in which the soldiers fight on the front when they know that their home and their families, their home front is being hit? You were both brigade commanders of reserve brigades. Did this ever come into the matter when you're preparing your soldiers? I think that our people believe very strongly in the justice of what they're doing and the importance of protecting the home front. And in many senses, the stronger the attack on the home front will be, their desire to act will be greater. And not only will this not lower motivation, on the contrary, it will raise it. I believe it will create a greater complexity in those places where we need to organize for the fighting, and we're preparing for that, and we're trying to do that, and there will be more protection there, and a more agile, and spend less time in those places. But when I look at the last operation, and I look at those soldiers who lived in those places that were most hit by the missiles, I went there to strengthen their resolve and to increase their motivation to go out to fight. And in your perspective, this matter of the home front and the front, I think there are two levels here. One, as Ori said, it will strengthen the motivation of people to come to fight. In Operation Protective Edge, we saw the number of buses and blowing up, and so when people say, if If I'm going to be hit, then I would rather have it while I'm fighting than rather in a bus than in a cafe. I think in that if that happened, if what you said would happen, then this would have an impact. This would increase motivation. But I tried to simulate for my commanders the situation for the soldiers, that their family is in danger and they are asked to come and fight in order to give the tactical solutions in the solution and talk about it, so that they are available in real time to think about the mission and nothing else. You're both sending a message that we will not have a real problem, because people will view it as part of protecting their homes. So let me give you an example. Last December, in my previous role, in a large exercise that began on the big day of the storm, the big storm last year. Everyone was supposed to, we had to enlist an entire battalion on Sunday, and 2,000 paratroopers and paratroopers came despite the snow, and that a lot of people didn't have electricity in their homes. So it's a good excuse maybe to get away from home. So, when their missiles are falling on the home front, maybe it's safer to fight at the front. I think our soldiers are filled with faith in the justice of our cause, and they will come. If I look at the last operation, as someone on the sidelines, I have to say I was involved a little bit in the reserves, but speaking as an observer from the sidelines, the investigative processes of the IDF were very prolonged. In other words, it took too long. I remember in 2006, after the Second Lebanon War, that the investigations also took a long time. And it took a while to present, but then, and Gabi Ashkenazi called it going back to basic exercises. Did you also reach a conclusion that you had to get back to basics, or did you? Or did you move to new methods? As I said before the fighting, we assimilated new fighting techniques. Will this be relevant for the next? I think this will be really relevant for the next war. But we need to fine-tune them, not leave them the way they are. I think that the challenges we've had in the past 10 years are the addition of other warfares and other techniques as we understand the enemy that is facing us. You can't always cover everything of everything you want to do. And on the lower levels of even when you encounter something new, like for example, very, very dense residential areas like in Sajaiya or underground tunnels, this enables preparation, because it enables us to contend, because we're standing on very firm ground of preparation. And I think all the company commanders in the battalion, their professional level, created a feeling that nothing was really surprising, or that no surprising was on the level that it could not be addressed. There are two parts to my answer. Yes, the investigation took too long. And secondly, we have to remember that the IDF, as soon as the war was over, for example, my battalions were able to carry out a few weeks of training. We know that the other side, the motivation is still going strong, and so as someone who's also done other things, and when you finish and you have time to investigate everything you've done, and here, as soon as the fighting was over, everyone went back to what they were doing earlier. This made it difficult to learn, and so the learning curve was disconnected time-wise from what actually happened. So it took a long time. The army is a large organization, and the synchronization took a long time. On the other hand, and this is the second part of the answer, we internalized many things very quickly. I can tell you that 2 weeks after the fighting, some very significant weeks, certain things were changed. We added exercises, we changed exercises, we introduced certain additions to the training base. We added certain elements to the training of the junior commanders. We changed things very quickly, and one of the central things that we are trying to do, not only in the Nachal Brigade, everywhere, is to be a learning organization. During the fighting itself, I and the battalion commanders, and they with their company commanders, we try to see, we stop, we see what we have learned so far in the different places, and we try to learn ahead, and as a result of that, we were able to avoid encountering more IEDs. We were able to identify more tunnels based on the codes and the way that Hamas marked out the territory. So the idea of the army and as a learning organization is fundamental in the development of the army to make it more better adapted to future challenges. The question is whether we have adapted ourselves enough for the next challenge. That's a question we're always going to ask. I suggest we always be dissatisfied with where we are and try to be better adapted than we are now. But this is something that changes all the time. We're always looking at the challenges through analysis and the intelligence, and we're constantly trying to see how we're adapting ourselves to the challenge. For years we talked about in the army of learning on the go. Do you feel today that you have better tools so that you can learn and draw conclusions that will impact the way you fight? You looked at me with some suspicion. I think the tools are our eyes and ears and our sense of smell, and the fact that we as commanders need to be in the front, and we need to look at those and hear what we're being told by our people. When they see with their eyes, and when you see with your eyes, you understand things better than when you are told about what's happening. And that explains the understanding of how to explain the knowledge that you have, and you can explain how you have a shaft of a tunnel in a certain position. This can create a certain gap until you manage to coordinate all the people and disseminate the knowledge broadwise. What has not changed is the importance of doing it and to learn faster than the enemy as you go.
Ori, a question for you once again regarding a phenomenon that we have seen in the past, particularly regarding ongoing security. We said that every young officer must be a strategist, because each and every maneuver that he would do has strategic meaning and implications. I'm talking about Judea and Samaria, ongoing security, and also around the Gaza Strip, because the pressure in Gaza keeps on burning. In this manner, the commanders were almost devoid of their decision-making capabilities because they had to have an approval from top command, and all of a sudden there is a routine of ongoing security going from the routine to fighting. How does this affect the junior command? First of all, one of the most important things as commander is to understand it. This is one of the most important discussions I had with my soldiers. We have to switch discs, so to speak, to understand that we're now in a different reality and a reality of fighting. And the next the idea was to define a certain mission to a commander, to tell the commander what are the conditions by which he has to operate and what are the means that I allow the commander. After saying all of this and assuming that he's going to go on and operate because I cannot take each and every one by hand, he will fulfill his mission with the utmost responsibility. I think that generally speaking, commanders in all levels understood it very quickly and understood that they are commanding their own sector. Tomer, maybe it was even more acute in your case, shifting from ongoing security missions to fighting a war. I don't know if it was more acute, but first of all, we had to say we're now in a different situation, we're now in a war situation, and one should conduct oneself as a war. So we're going to mission-targeted activity. I think that we try to maintain this command throughout the year, whether it is in our training, it has to do with exercising responsibility on the level of the commander in the field. The division commander, the more they understand the responsibility, the more they aim to fulfill it, the more we allow them to do it with the proper tools and space, we're going to gain other independent divisions who know how to get a mission at 2 a.m. to go from one battalion where all of a sudden a commander has a mission 2 a.m. You have to say goodbye to the commander of Division 13, and in 2 in the morning say hello to the Golani Division commander. This is on one side of Sajaya, the other one is on the another side of Sajaya. These are the commanders that we want, these are the ones that we need. And we have them. We have to grow them. It is not naturally organic. We have to make sure that it is so. We have in our institution a program led by Gabi Siboni. I don't know if he's here with us. It deals with fighting in urban areas. We're working in this project together with Red Cross and other international entities because we professionals are very proud in the way our army is fighting and all the considerations that it takes into account. On the other hand, some say that our fear of damage limits our power. Do you feel, you as commanders, that your hands are tied, that you have on your back the fear of collateral damage, so to speak? Do you think that you might go to Europe once and be arrested at the airport? When I'm in the battlefield, I think of the mission and of my soldiers. This is the only thing that goes through my mind, not anything else. I am not so much, I don't fear going to trips. We have many places to go to in Israel. I think that we have everything that we need in order to be successful in our missions. In a dense populated area, we are where the enemy is using this specific scenario in order to obtain an advantage. This definitely creates complexities, but I'd like them to stay as such. I don't want to feel comfortable shooting at civilian population and harming citizens for no necessary cause. This is why we're going to try and prevent it as much as possible, and it does create complexities in fighting. And by the way, it's even difficult without that, fighting in a narrow alley where it is difficult to put a tank or any armored vehicle, and your advantage immediately goes down. You have to be more effective in your fighting. You have to be able to mobilize the population out of there to be more free to fight. This is one of our most meaningful challenges in fighting. I would like to share a story with you from a protective edge operation that will connect the two things. In one of the days, we're trying to find the route of one of the attack tunnels in near Kisufim, and I have in the tank a foreign press reporter who wanted to see how the fighting was going on. He knows Hebrew. He goes in the rear corridor. I put Jantex so that he can hear the radio connection, and as if by order we have a dialogue. We're hearing the entire battalion net, and we hear a dialogue that is going on between one of the tanks, one of the commanders, and the headquarters. A tank identifies enemy 3 kilometers range. He's in position and he's requesting permission to shoot. This was following several other occurrences where Palestinian refugees were clustered in certain areas, and we put them on the map so we don't harm a population that was concentrated in schools and other such places. He's asking permission to shoot and a minute later, headquarters says this is exactly where refugees are located. Take cover, do not shoot. And then that reporter says to me, it is our tank that is being threatened? I said no. But had it been asked, you would have liked us to shoot, wouldn't you? And he said in English, no comment. Ori, do you have any experience that you take along with you? Okay, we went into Bet Hanun, 931 battalion. The moment we went there, a missile was shot at a tank from a school for boys. That's how we refer to it, an UNRWA school. A missile was shot from there. We went to this building. We take it over. After we break the wall, we hear screams of children and women. The military drill was to open with live fire. Something felt different, something felt wrong, and so they held themselves. They took out the women and they evacuated them to Bet Hanun. This keeps on going. I rather have this situation than our force going in with all its means and find a family that had been just killed. And so this suspense, this tension when you are in a densely populated area is constantly there. This is where the Hamas wanted us to fight, and we have to know how to adjust our activity there. The main thing is the capability to know how to mobilize the population in order to enlarge our freedom of operation. And we try to operate in this means, and I'm very happy to say that in large portions of our fighting, which was going on for over 2 weeks, we hardly had any casualties in the population. There's another story, Battalion 932 attacking El Atatra, identifies an elderly person who was injured in his leg. They go to him, they want to serve some assistance, but they see something unclear next to his head. They bring the army doctor, and this old guy pulls a grenade, screams Allahu Akbar. He doesn't have enough time to throw it, but the complexity is there. This is part of fighting in a populated area, and when the enemy does not align like a regular soldier. Okay. First of all, I'm very happy and proud that we have waited for you at the end of the conference. I want to thank you. Good luck in the missions and your promotions. And I want to thank everybody who partook in this session. Thank you. And now, we cannot believe it, but we are at the end of the conference. There are a few people left here in the audience. It is nice. We had 2 days, by the way, 2.5 days, because the first portion was closed off to the public. Very interesting, very interesting. There's a whole line of people that I must thank for preparing this conference, and I don't really know where I should start and where I should finish. The FAZA team that assisted us in the entire production here in the museum, Orly and Deborah's team, and Nofar and Smadar, and Kobe, who is here everywhere offering his assistance, and Shuki, who helped us bringing this conference together, Amit and Judy and Moshe and Gal, who worked along with them regarding distributing material, Amit and Gal, who took the issue of communication and ideas. It was very successful. We're going to see the end results later on. All the moderators of the sessions, I'm not going to read the entire list, so many people, and the guests, and you, dear audience, who partook in this conference and perhaps learned a thing or two from us, and Liran, who orchestrated the stage in these 2 days of conference, and last, and also Amos, who is here with us, helped us bring about this idea. We must not expose him, so we keep him hidden there. I don't want to see he'll be back, because he might not be back. We rather you be a minister of defense. And last but not least, and all other people whose names I didn't mention, but last but not least, truthfully, the one who has been working on this project for 3 months, 24/7, my greatest love, Emma. Thank you very much. You're one of a kind. So thank you all. And if I neglected to mention anybody, I do apologize, and we're going to later on thank you in person. So have a most enjoyable evening before winter is coming back to visit us at the end of the week. Thank you.